all please rise to our feet as we take the national anthem. Technically, are you going to help us, or do you want us to sing it ourselves? You can help us. We should sing it ourselves. Don't worry, we don't have to sing it. Okay, at the count of 3, we are going to take the second stanza of the national anthem. 1, and please, may I also request that there should be less movement, in fact, no movement in respect of our national anthem, please. 1, 2, 3, go. O God of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youth the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, and live in just and truth, great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice reign. Thank you very much. You may take your seat. Prof, the way you are looking at me, you are not sure I know it, sir. I know it too. Prof was waiting for me to make a mistake. No, Prof, I was ready for this, sir. Okay. Thank you very much for doing that for us. So right away, I'll just hand over the microphone. Ushers, please, we need that wipe that we had yesterday to help us with exchange of microphones, please. Thank you very much. So may I encourage anyone who comes up here to make use of the hand sanitizer for now, pending when we get the wipe, so that we'll continue to be COVID-19 observant. So I welcome to the microphone the representative of the DG of the MPC, who will come forward and give us the welcome address of Honorable Nasir Issa Kwara, Chairman, National Population Commission, ably represented by Matthew T.S., Director, Civil Registration and Vital Statistics, National Population Commission. A round of applause for him, please, as he comes to the microphone. Please, clapping is free. You can still do that. It's free. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Your Royal Highness, Alhaji Dr. Amadu Aliyu, Oga Onawo OON, and Doma of Doma. You are welcome, sir. Let me seek your protection and permission to stand on existing protocol. I bring greetings for the Chairman of National Population Commission, who will have been happy to be here this morning, but because he's engaged in another national assignment of equal importance. And as such, this morning, I'm representing him, and I would like to give his speech. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome our distinguished participants to the 8th Annual Population Lecture Series 2020, organized by the National Population Commission in conjunction with other stakeholders with the theme Gender-Based Violence and Family Planning During Emergencies. This year's lecture series, which is the 8th in the series, is particularly significant to us in the Commission, as it seeks to x-ray the increasing high report of gender-based violence across the globe, especially during the COVID-19 lockdown. Every year, millions of women and children in various parts of the world are displaced by natural disasters, wars, or conflict. And added to this was the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic, which necessitated a lockdown in many countries of the world, including Nigeria, to contain the spread of the virus. Research has shown that close to 40% of women and girls who experience violence, especially rape, want to avoid becoming pregnant. These incidents and other forms of gender-based violence increase during times of crisis, thereby affecting women and girls more severely, as they are exposed to all sorts of deprivations, especially access to family planning products and services. The intellectual exchanges that will take place during this lecture will no doubt offer a platform to share ideas and opportunities to deliberate as stakeholders on ways to best approach this issue of gender-based violence as it relates to family planning during emergencies. The focus of the 2020 lectures will cut across system challenges associated with gender-based violence that may hinder the progress of population and sustainable development in Nigeria. I am delighted to note that crucial issues relevant to this year's lecture will include aligning sustainable development agenda with the National Development Plan strategies, advancing strategic partnership and key stakeholders buy-in on addressing and curbing gender-based violence in Nigeria, formulation of policies specific to gender-based violence. Resource persons for this lecture series have been carefully selected from a crop of professionals who have gathered years of experience from a wide range of family planning and gender-based issues. It is my hope that they will bring their diverse experience to bear on deliberation and come up with feasible and effective ways on how to effectively manage the issues thrown up in a way consistent with the imperatives of sustainable development. Participants to this 8-lecture series are drawn from the academia, policymakers, researchers, development partners, and other relevant stakeholders with interest in fighting gender-based violence, population-related issues, and sustainable development. This multi-sectoral approach underscores the importance the Commission attaches to the issue of gender and development in the country. The Commission, on its part, is deepening engagement with relevant stakeholders at all levels to ensure that population variables are integrated into the development process across sectoral lines and also coordinate activities of stakeholders towards effective implementation of these programs. I wish to thank our development partners and other key stakeholders who are daily striving to drive the various family planning programs with the aim of having a better and healthy family. To the resource persons, I want to thank you for making yourself available to share your knowledge with the rest of us. And to our royal father here, I want to specifically thank you, sir, for leaving your domain and be here with us this morning. This is a manifestation of the importance and your interest in gender violence issues. And to all of us who contributed to make this year's annual population lecture series a success, I salute your resilience and dedication to the cause. Thank you all, and have a successful and fruitful deliberation.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nasir Isa Kwara, Chairman, National Population Commission, ably represented by the Director, Civil Registration and Vital Statistics, Matthew T.S. I have been instructed, and as someone who is under instruction, I would like to invite to the high table the following distinguished guests. Please let's make welcome to the high table the Chairman of the AFP Board of Trustees, Alhaji Sani Umar Jabi, to the high table, sir. Let's also make welcome to the high table a member of the BOT, Dr. Adenike Adeyemi, to the high table, sir. Ma, sorry. You know, in the media, there is no man or woman, but it's not like that here. So you're welcome, ma. A round of applause for her, please, as she comes to take her seat. And to a very critical part of this, the guest lecturer, I'm happy to inform us that she is with us. She's ready for us, and we're also ready for her. So let's make welcome also to the high table, the guest lecturer for today. She is a professor of literature and gender studies, University of Abuja. Please make welcome Professor Mnguember Vicky Slyvester to the high table. You're welcome, ma. You're welcome, ma. Okay. Allow me then also to move on to the next item on our program, which is the opening remarks that will be taken. Oh, before then, actually, I've just been informed also that joining us online, and we also need to recognize her, is the president of Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria, Hajia Salawa Sani. She's online. You're welcome, ma. A round of applause for her. She's online. Okay, and to physically give the opening remarks, we have Dr. Ibrahim I. Ibrahim, who is ably represented by Dr. Okai Haruna Aku, Director of Advocacy for Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria. You're welcome to the microphone, sir, for the opening remarks. Yes, sir, you can come, sir. Uh-oh, our hand sanitizer has gone too far. Let me, please. Thank you, Your Royal Highness. Thank you very much, sir. So please, like I mentioned, all speakers should endeavor to use this in and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the moderator, for this session. We know we hold an annual population lecture series every year. Unfortunately, the executive director of Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria is not available for one reason or the other. Whatever I say here is his speech, and I'm here to ably represent him for this particular program. This is the 8th APLS. So I read this speech. On behalf of the volunteer of Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria, I am privileged to welcome you all to the 2020 Annual Population Lecture Series, which we call APLS. In particular, I want to welcome the chairperson of this year's lecture, His Royal Highness Alhaji Dr. Amadu Aliyu Oga Onao, OON, the Andoma of Doma. I would like to also welcome our guest speaker, Professor Mnguember. I'm sorry, Mnguember. Thank you. Vicky Slyvester, a professor of literature and general studies, University of Abuja, FCT. Indeed, the journey to this event was long. The road was carefully conceived, planned, and executed under the leadership of National Population Commission, the Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria, the United Nations Fund for Population Activities, UNFPA, special appreciation to UNFPA, PPFN, USAID, Breakthrough Action. I wish to thank all the organizers in the planning committee for being part of this process. The investment in planning this event will have been futile without you. I am optimistic that the lecture and the follow-on discussion will contribute to the body of knowledge and ideas that will enable us to take concrete actions towards purposeful nation building. Our goal is to promote conversation and constructive engagement that will result in policies and programs that will improve the prosperity of our country and its citizens. I wish to once again thank you all for accepting to be here with us today and also wish you a pleasant session. Dr. Ibrahim, Executive Director, Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll just go straight to the next item on our program without taking too much time, which of course he's been recognized, and it is very important that we also hear from him. Like one of the speakers mentioned, he left his domain to be with us. That shows how important this event is, how much he takes it. We don't take that for granted. So please put your hands together. Answer, you don't need to come here. You can also sit there unless you wish to come here. Honor must be given to whom honor is due. So please, let's make welcome for the chairman's opening remarks. His Royal Highness Alhaji Dr. Ahmadu Aliu Oga Onawo, OON, and Duma of Duma. That microphone is working, sir. A round of applause for him.
Let me cherish the humility and the recognition accorded me as being honored, because it's due me by honoring everybody here. I will stand up. I will. None of us very, very important. We are commonly, equally very important before God and humanity. And that and be responsible collectively for the existence and safety of every one of us. I don't know where to start from. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are mothers to me, those that I'm older than, and those who are daughters and sisters. Distinguished brothers, let me acknowledge the Honorable Minister of Health, former, and my friend and schoolmate, Dr. Okai, that I didn't see since 1987 when we graduated from the university. Guest speaker. I'll do my best to make sure I don't dare your responsibility. You are the person of letters, a professor at that. It is safer to stride carefully so that I don't invoke the intellectual that I know I'm very, very incompetent to try. Let me appreciate with gratitude the opportunity to be here in an occasion as important as this. Important because those of us at the background in the villages are the ones that know the impact, the consequence, and the dimension of gender violence in all its forms. Whether in moment of peace or moment of conflict that generates into an emergency and all the ravaging consequences associated with it. As a matter of fact, our own experience is not based upon moments of crisis and emergencies. Even when there is peace, those of us at the hinterlands of Nigeria are those that wake up every morning, first thing in the morning, with mothers or fathers rushing to the palace to plead with His Highness to help on an injustice done to his daughter or his son. And when there are crises that are always in the villages, before those of us in the city here and have such academic opportunities to discuss, provide solution and aids and take to us, those of us down there at the base are those that see when there is conflict between the herdman and the farmer. Are those of us, we are the ones that know when neighbors within the state or across borders with other states find themselves at conflict and will have to think of the emergency and immediate remedy that it must stop, so we save the devastation and extent of human and material damages. Those of us in the villages and the cumulative consequences of our impatience or our excesses are those that give you reasons to organize such workshop and seminar, so that we are gathered to think together, profile solutions to issues that should save the lives and the world, especially where our patients will have led to self-destruction, human and material. Leverage of this opportunity, join you here. One, approaches or solutions, gender-based issues, don't know, that we will have learned and domesticate and make sure there is no gender violence at the grassroots. So my intention principally in joining here is to learn new ways. And of course, use the opportunity to tell you that unless we have crises outside the federal capital, we won't have an opportunity for intellectuals to rub minds and provide solutions to such crises across the nation. Sad as it may be, crises are indispensable nature of the human person. Incidentally, every creation, whether animals, have moments of crisis, have moments of conflict, have moments they hurt themselves. So if animals will hurt themselves, I'm sure human beings who think by wisdom and intellectual capacity, mine should be better than another person, who think because of height or sex differences, I must be in charge. Sometimes it is human and normal that there are certain circumstances that must arise, that there are conflict among human beings, and some people must receive it badly, and some people might benefit from it. No matter the consequence, somebody or some people are victims. And I think that is what has led the United Nations, for example, in 1993, to insist that there must be a deliberate effort to eliminate violence against women. And in 2017, to insist that Article 3 and 5 of the Sustainable Development must ensure health, must eliminate, and must ensure equity. And that is why the United Nations is interested in what is happening, even in such moments where we have pandemic, where we have such national and international threat to the existence of mankind. Incidentally, at the moment, it's only the animals that are safe. Human beings are the ones that globally are threatened and their existence are endangered. The United Nations is interested in knowing to the extent that the world today is threatened. What must we do as a human being? That we know the extent of the danger and we check the dimensions of the danger so that the human race is not eliminated. The United Nations took interest to know that within the period of the lockdown, in Lagos, Abuja, and Ogun, there are over 143 cases of gender-based violence. The IG of police told us there are over 717 cases in Nigeria. NAPTIP is insisting that it has settled and has received several reports running to over 80-something of various levels of danger, gender violence, and relatedly, across states of the nation, most of them undocumented and unknown. Such incidences and accounts abound. Now, such situations are only recorded now because at a certain point we were locked down since March of this year. At a certain point we are asked we can take a walk, but wear a mask and sanitize. But before now, all of these incidences of gender violence have existed. And that's why those of us at the villages, when such opportunity comes, will say, well, I think we should come and discuss and tell our minds that this is not a new situation of you don't take away with the live with them. So, should our interests just solve this momentary threat, or we must have a consolidated, deliberate national and international policy that will monitor the existence of human beings across all levels, across all times? The violence against women did not just start. It has existed over time. The wife has slapped her husband in the past. the husband punched his wife a number of times. Little kids have been taken advantage of, male or female, over time. People across communities have risen against each other, and it has led to issues of refugees across nations and communities and nations over time. The coronavirus has only given us an opportunity to awaken ourselves from our sleep and develop a very conscious national and international policy that will tell mankind that this long bad experience of human inhumanity to himself, shouldn't we consciously make sure it is stopped? Because gender-based violence is not restricted to the experience and the nasty circumstance that the women go through when there are crises in the world. It's experience that over time, between man and his brother, is gender violence. Between a woman and her sister, is gender violence. When a man destroys the life of a young boy, it's gender violence. When a woman takes advantage of a man or a small boy, it's gender violence. Whatever form of harm on a human being against his will is gender violence. As a matter of fact, I was even saying, even the animals, any injustice between animals is gender violence because there are male and female among them. But so, should we only be interested in asking the guest speaker to give us all the intellectual guidance and other people's experiences are brought to the fore, and we wake up, get very beautiful resolutions, packaged and sent to development partners and national policies, and that ends it? Or it must be very conscious, deliberate action by both populace and government, enshrined in the Constitution, especially now we are lucky. The National Assembly is trying to revisit the Constitution and make it Nigerian and more people-oriented. Shouldn't this lecture series develop a blueprint that the National Assembly must include in the Constitution of Nigeria, so that across all times, no man is hurt, no child is hurt, no woman is hurt? I hope, by the grace of God, by the close of the day, this gathering should be able to come up with a long-lasting solution from Nigeria that will be a model for the world on rescue for human life, male or female. I thank you for your time.
We cannot be sitting down after hearing this, I promise you. Wow, 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 wow. Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness. For some of us who are wondering what's happening, wow, wow, wow. I'm happy to tell you that His Royal Highness is a graduate, was a graduate of the University of Jos as far back as 1987, where he obtained his Bachelor of Science in Sociology. So you can see where that brilliance is coming from. So all the Josites are happy in the house. Okay, let's not cause that crisis. So because if we start going university by university now, we'll not live here. Professor, Unijust is very excited. Should we tell them about Ibadan? No, not yet, sir. Okay. His Royal Highness also earned his Masters of Arts in History and International Law and Diplomacy from the same University of Jos. So you see, we have a very, very brilliant Royal Father in our midst. And Your Excellency, sir, you know what has also happened? We are so, Your Royal Highness, we are so excited about your presentation that Chief Mrs. Mojima Konjola, MFR, veteran broadcaster, says she cannot let you go. You must come and tell the world these things you have said. So she's giving you free airtime on NTA for the world to hear you. I think Chief Mrs. Modi deserves a round of applause for that. Thank you very much, man. Thank you very, very much. We don't take that for granted. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is hearing from our guest lecturer. But before then, allow me to quickly do this. Our guest lecturer is the Professor of Literature and Gender Studies at the University of Abuja. She is a literary critic, author, social commentator, gender advocate, activist, and supporter of the Violence Against Persons, which is now and arts. She's also a academic. As an assistant director of gender security, she was on the team that initiated the gender studies program. As first director of general studies, she initiated the peace and conflict study program and the entrepreneurship development program, of which she became the first director. She headed several other units and left indelible marks. And I'm sure that after listening to her lecture, you, for yourself, agree. She has participated in conferences, including but definitely not limited to literature and the advancement of gender in Nigeria in 2010. She was there. She also has participated in mobilization strategies for increasing the participation of women in politics and governance, and also several that time will not allow me to mention. Please, let's warmly welcome to the microphone our guest speaker for today, Professor Mnguember, Vicky. Well, you might take your seat there. Let me sanitize this for you. Yes, thank you. Let's keep clapping for her as I do the COVID-19 protocol. You know, yesterday we were talking about these drunken microphones. It's not only the microphones, even our hands too. Okay. Prof. Please, let's welcome her again before she begins. Thank you very much. And please, we need to allow Prof, we need to permit Prof to sit and take her lecture. Thank you very much, ma'am.
I will just stand briefly to give the necessary protocols, His Royal Highnesses on the table, and all those the erudite professors before me, and all the wonderful people in this house. I want to thank you, National Population Commission, especially for finding me worthy to present your keynote paper this morning. Thank you very much. Off the mic, I will say, I'm not usually this weak. I'm a very strong person. Unfortunately, coincidences. And I had to come here straight from the hospital, which even made me a little late. You know. So I will take my seat. Yeah. So when I saw the title of this paper, Gender-Based Violence and Family Planning in Times of Emergency, I thought a little that the National Population Commission is very conscious of something very important. What are the emergencies? It's not just we had an emergency on ground, but I looked around and I said, there are so many emergencies that affect the family all through life. And if we had to define gender-based violence, we will go right back to creation. Violences of all kinds have been running around, as His Royal Highness rightly noted, between men and women, children, teenagers, and others. Weaker people and more powerful people. So it's a human problem. But as he rightly noted, humanity has been given the intelligence that animals do not have. And so discipline comes in very handy when such things are being talked about. He defined gender-based violence almost all around. So I'll just sum it by saying it's a violation of human rights based on gender. And it is an emergency issue at all times of human existence. It has existed since the beginning of time throughout the world. And he had mentioned several examples of these, whether it's rape, whether it's sexual intimidation, whether it's incest, whether it's pornography, whether it's coercion, whether it's blackmail or psychological abuse, controlling, or willfully placing a person in fear of physical injuries, whether it's offensive conduct, taking advantage or undue advantage of a person living with disability, whether it's genital mutilation, wife battery, or husband battery. Frustrating investigation and abuse by state actors, harmful traditional practices as of widowhood, as of beatings and killing in various ways. Killings come in various ways. It involves economic blackmail, including forceful ejection from homes, whether it's the men ejecting the women ejecting the men, or the men ejecting the women. Stalking, forced isolation or separation from family and friends. Abandonment of spouse, children, and other dependents without sustenance, depriving a person from his or her liberty. Whether it's damage to property with intent to cause distress, deprivation of rights to inheritance. Gender-based violence also involves killing an unwanted child, especially female children, sexual abuses of babies and children and women, sex trafficking, neglect, forced labor, and other multiple forms of discrimination, which each of us may have either perpetrated or suffered, most of us sitting here. From choosing male above female children, economic domestic violence, which result in physical, sexual, and psychological suffering, dehumanizing circumcision of females for the simple reason of depriving them of sexual pleasure, forced marriages, and widowhood practices. From what we have been saying so far, women seem to be at the heart of this problem. We would like to look at, like today we are called upon to look at gender-based violence and family planning in times of emergencies. Gender-based violence often affects persons of a particular gender disproportionately, though we are aware it is not limited to males or females, but largely affects girls and women. Recently, people have been talking a lot about a president and a first lady, and somebody told me that is gender-based violence. But National Population Commission has looked at very serious issues. We want to look at family, because that's very important in this discussion. A family consists of a man and woman, mother. The woman is the mother, the man is the father eventually, who bear children. Now, large families are a common phenomenon in Nigeria, going back to tradition when farming was the mainstay of the economy. That situation has developed over a period of time. And the Commission has seen what large families can happen to the generality of a developing country. So when we look at the man and the woman and the children as family, what do we expect? How do the children come about? Is it a discussion between the father and the mother to have the right number of children? What is the right number of children in the first place? Why do we sometimes have families that have problems bearing this number of children or that number of children? Why does it result to problems? So we need to look at the family and look at our traditional values and whether those traditions are valuable at the moment. How do we go about them? And it is important that we have our traditional rulers here. I've visited the nearest Tiakasa, where I liaised with the traditional ruler there, and some reverend sisters who run schools there. And we look at certain things involving gender-based violence. And they are very familiar with the situation. And they know what to do. But then, as said earlier, it is a cooperative thing. It's not a one person. So the family. Greatest challenge is to implement those things that we know, which the traditional rulers know, which we discuss and pinpoint, especially as they involve security agencies, because it's very important that the tagging of victims or women who for one reason or the other may run away from the family, tagging them with certain names which most of us have known as prostitution or disobeying the family. So we look at the family and what it involves in what we are talking about here. We also need to look at family planning. Family planning is a decision by a couple to have the number of children they can cater for in this new Nigeria today. That is to provide a home, to feed, to protect, to guide, and to give affordable educational skills for lifetime sustenance. In normal times, the couple plan their family according to their economic strength, as this determines how well they cater for the children. So economic turndown, lack of planned community, lack of jobs, lack of markets are emergencies which will generate gender-based violence and lead to unplanned population growth. So what are the emergencies? The first of these that I see as an emergency is systemic failure. We must get the system working. There is a cultural difficulty of speaking out on allegations of sexual misconduct against perpetrators. So we must look at the systems and how they have failed, which has increased gender-based violence. Every paper, every day you pick a paper, there is a news on systemic failure. An example is the Ayo Ajani case, the Petra Christian Center in May 2020. There were 3 abused sisters who spoke, though the church was forced to step down the pastor. I don't want to go into that. Many of you know the story. But where systems are strong, these issues will not happen. And if they happen, they will be handled immediately. So no day passes without series of abuses in families and killing women and girls. And there is a need to wake up. Second, systemic abuse. Parents kicking out their children who get pregnant, sometimes through rape. Sometimes by family members. There are, of course, many teenage girls who get pregnant out of promiscuity. But then they are still teenagers experimenting, and the parents have a right, have a duty to these children. And then, of course, a third, systemic failure. Government must build a string for support systems for women. What's the failure? I went to South Africa to visit a safe home. They asked me to come and talk to the women in the home. And I was surprised that the way they live was much more sophisticated than most middle-class homes back home where I was coming from. So what's the problem with these girls and women in this home? Much of it was gender-based violence. And I was to talk to them, encourage them, some of them to go back to school, especially the younger ones. Of course, before I left, 7 of them applied to school. But who is to pay for this school? There is the government. So the system encourages development and better production of the people, the young people and the women. We also encourage the women to find something to do other than living on what government provides for them. They have breakfast in the morning, they have lunch, they have dinner, they go to bed. What can you do for yourself? God gave you intelligence. God gave you talent. First, before I left, several of them, I started talking about things they could do with support from the system. So, families should not be threatened for reporting cases. Some people are threatened when they report a case. They say, why did you do it? You embarrass your family. you embarrass the community. And so the women themselves in that community, they need to speak out. Their voices must demand responsibility from public office holders and the community. The citizens need to ask its elected officers why they are silent on cases of gender-based violence. Silence is one of the most dangerous things. Pretending that this is not important, or it didn't happen, or it's not my child. Tomorrow it becomes our child. Tomorrow it becomes one of us if it is left to go unpunished. Institutional education must be reached from home. Many children don't have to look for vehicles to go to school. So this is also a very important system. In Abuja here, government has done a lot. All the districts have schools. But I know in some places I visited when I was doing a sabbatical at UBEC, children have to travel distances in some states to get to school. And the small girls are not safe on the way. In the town, even in the municipal here, we have a case in Karu. A very responsible looking man who goes to park his car and pick girls and say he will drop them in school. They're all rushing. And he would pick one every now and again until one of them raised a cry. And by the time he was arrested, they found out that he had done that close to 10 other young children. Surprisingly, this is where the women's voices need to come in as well. The man's wife came to beg us. We should have mercy on her husband. So these are the situations. These are the voices we are talking about demanding responsibility. And then everybody is talking of infrastructure. So there are necessary infrastructure to reduce these problems. If certain infrastructures are on ground, the young people can produce a lot of things. I have had young girls within my home environment who learned to do certain things because we expose them. And if the infrastructure is there, light, market, the necessary market, for them to sell whatever they do, that is something to reduce the problems. So we have a state of emergency on gender-based violence. And this is applicable to all the states. And many of you from different states have an idea of what it means practically for each state. So what should the state do? A system should not pay lip service. When we have meetings like this, a lot of lip service is paid to what is being done or to be done. But on ground, it's not there. So what do states do? Provide funds. Sometimes we may ask, where would the funds come from? But that is something that can be sorted. States can domesticate the VAP laws. States can set up states GBV response teams. they can set up at least one shelter in each state with officials trained for shelter management. Massive and aggressive community sensitization. The police, have worked closely with the police. They do their work, but a lot of them are just as human as we are. And sometimes it's amazing. It's the women police who abuse the girls who have been victimized. Why were you there? Why were you wearing that dress? Unfortunately, we know when women are abused, there are babies in their diapers who are abused. What were they wearing? Diapers. Then there are 60, 70. We have a case of an 80-something-year-old from our records. I was wondering, I graduated before His Royal Highness in the same University of Jos, I think 7 years before him. And I've been working for years. I don't see myself as a man or woman. I see myself as a strong person who can do what needs to be done. And when I argued, what would any man see in me to come and rape me? And somebody said, let's give her record of 70s and 80s. So it is the irresponsibility, the lack of control. And when these things go to police, they should handle them as it should be handled. Not speaking English and telling us one thing or what this person was wearing, what this person was not wearing. Dedicated police officers, we should train and equip them with the necessary logistics to respond to cases. And then, of course, social welfare workers. We shouldn't just take job seekers, people who are emotionally involved in things like this. Of course, appointment of passionate, committed persons as state commissioners for women and adequate funding for the ministry. The women ministries are not properly funded. In some states, the Ministry of Gender, Women Affairs, and Social Development are not properly funded. Their budgets are not even released from year to year, and they can do nothing about it. What is another emergency? The economy. Poverty is a serious economic problem because poor people are largely not productive, and as such, they have to depend on others for means of livelihood. And this has actually reduced some citizens below the level of human dependency or human decency. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Royal Highness, it is instructive to know that poverty is perhaps the only singular phenomenon whose presentation and consequences are patently multifaceted. Poverty represents a status of insufficiency which replicates itself in several ways, including non-possession of material requirements for comfortable living. There is poverty arising from lack of awareness. There is moral and intellectual poverty. In fact, when totally aggregated, poverty presents an image of absolute need level, where possession is very little or nothing, a sorry state, ill health, scanty, unproductive, and by all indications, a pitiable condition. Have we not been, some of us have been to IDP camps, and the poverty there, a lot of things happen. You can't stop a girl who has not eaten for 4 or 5 days. Somebody comes and says, follow me here, I'll give you food. And it happens. And then a lot of them get pregnant in the process. So we are talking of population again, explosion from IDPs as a result of poverty. We have had several attempts by government to reduce poverty. We know them, we know what Yakubu Gowon did, National Accelerated Food Production Program, General Basanjo, Operation Feed the Nation. And of course, we had Laji Shehu Shagarei's Green Revolution, several of them. But what do you say? Chinua Achebe summed up all these food programs. He said they gave us more food for thought than food for the stomach. You will see that I'll be citing from literary and other writers because we are told it is the writer that gives us the situation of our communities. In the UK, in Britain, over 100 years ago, the government changed certain laws because of Charles Dickens' writings. We study him all over the world now. A lot of our writers may be sent away or driven away from the country because they spoke the truth. But in the UK, the government said, you mean this is really happening? This has to change. The legislature will sit over this, and it shouldn't happen again. So the laws were changed as a result of Charles Dickens' writings. So we have another emergency, wartime. Ladies and gentlemen, we are familiar with what mothers go through in war time. Mother's Day is celebrated in honor of mothers. The honor is in view of mothers whose human rights are grossly violated in times of crisis, sadly, very often by security forces. We can go around the world to give us examples of these things. Congo, for instance. Literature best exemplifies the situation of women in wartime. We can look at Buchi Emecheta is one of our very popular writers. She gave us a book on the Nigerian war called Destination Biafra. And this, we see how the women suffered during this time. During the Boko Haram, which is still with us, a complicated war, the government is finding hard to control. We have these issues, girls being abducted even from schools and turned into slaves, sex slaves. Then, of course, we have emergency 4, health emergencies. In health emergencies, we have things like the Ebola, the HIV/AIDS, and of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, which we are talking about, the lockdown. Lockdown kept people indoors from work, from their businesses, And during that time, there were a lot of problems. We may laugh at what lockdown did. A lot of pictures of pregnant women were trending on the social media, and they said it was a result of lockdown. Action Aid captured over 80 cases of reported rape within the period, but there were more. There were hundreds of unreported cases, many with medical conditions. VVF is a common phenomenon in Nigeria. We have these pictures, we have the story all around us here. Very often it is the girls that are arrested for prostitution and taken to corners and abused by security operatives. We have this captured in so many books. I will want to note in conclusion that gender-based violence is not limited to women, but it largely affects women and girls. The family is the main hub of society where morally and ethically children are raised. There are several types of abuses in homes, street communals, on farms, in prison, abduction, IDPs, which lead to unplanned childbirth. However, the family records a high degree of violence against women in families, whether it's monogamous or polygamous, including abused minors, leading to unplanned children. We have talked about the types abuses coming and are frequently captured by anthropologists and literary artists in times of emergencies. Emergencies such as systemic failure, economic failure, war and health issues, including the COVID-19. The situation calls for government in various states to sign into law the SGBV and VAP bills, as the situation cannot be left in the hands of NGOs and SBOs. The question remains, is birth control a family issue or only the woman's issue? This becomes imperative when government limits the number of children, not to the family, but to the woman. What is the way forward? The system must protect its women through stiff law enforcement and the right punishment for abusers. We have mentioned that. The culture of silence where families tolerate rape of their children in place of honor must be revisited. Nigeria could borrow a leaf from Asian countries in controlling childbirth. It is a family issue, not a woman issue. The Goodluck Jonathan presidency signed into law in 2015 the VAP bill, but because it was federal, it is applicable to the FCT, and states need to key into it. At the moment, as we talk today, only 15 states have signed into law. It is a single law in place that transcends the criminal and penal code, guaranteeing justice and protecting the rights and properties of victims of gender-based violence by its expansion of the definition of rape, domestic offenses, incest, and several forms of violence. Seeks to profess stiff penalties for offenders who consciously cause others harm. The obnoxious widowhood practices in some states, where widows are made to drink water of a washed corpse, must be stopped as stipulated by the law. The states need to be committed in ensuring emergency outlook for SGBV. In states where this is not being well funded for effective advocacy, health and legal representation, Commissioners should do the needful or be guided on what to do. It falls on women to be committed to do anything and everything within their power in their various spaces to ensure they do what is necessary without thinking of their personal gains. Let's put Nigerian women and girls first. Let's walk the talk from across the 6 geopolitical zones, various professions, religion, intergenerational. They must make it clear that women are not begging for a favor, but demanding for what is rightly theirs. And that is right to life, right to dignity of the human person, freedom from discrimination and torture. Whereas it is not possible that government will create jobs for all the unemployed population, we recommend that Nigeria should set objectives and targets for a broad reform program based on best practices, which can offer more flexibility for enterprises and more security for unemployed graduates venturing into business. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are good at perfunctory actions and panels, and this does not work out for a well-established system with laws that are respected. Let us not make any mistake about it. Nigeria is a huge country of responsible families and resourceful youth. But in order to create jobs, the environment needs to be harnessed at the grassroots of family level. It is in this context that I chose my closing remarks that Nigeria's national growth may depend on oil, but human capital development depends on poverty alleviation through infrastructural development and employment. When people live on palliatives, they are careless. But when busy, they watch the number of children they have. Finally, I wish to thank the organizers of this conference for a well-thought-out subject for this event. I see renewed hope for women and girls in the justice space, in the government that makes and keeps its promises to protect and give women and girls the liberty to live fulfilled lives and take their rightful place in the economies and governance of their nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Mnguember Vicky Slyvester. And to also imagine all the stress you went through to attend, to give this lecture, we don't take it for granted at all. Please, another round of applause for her. For some of you who are wondering why we're making so much fuss about hand sanitizer and all, it is the right thing to do, is the new normal, including the fact that, as you may be aware, Dr. Ejike Oji is the head of the health subcommittee of the FCT COVID-19 response. So if he doesn't do it, he must do the talk. In the course of this, I have been instructed to also, Your Royal Highness, sir, some members of the Board of Trustees and the Technical Management Committee who are also in our midst. So please, before we take questions and answers, we're going to take about 4 questions. 2 questions, slots will be given to women, 1 slot to a man. Prof, they're marginalizing us these days, though. It's okay. And 1 slot to youth. God bless us if the youth is also a woman, so that will balance. But let me quickly do this recognition before I take the questions. And we also have the privilege of coming to ask your questions physically. Unless those who are online, who ask questions online, will also read out your questions. But anyone in the hall who may wish to ask a question, you can come physically if you don't want to write your question. So in that light, I want to recognize in our midst a former provost of the College of Medicine, and I'm the Azikiwe Teaching Hospital in Nnewi, Professor Adima. He's right with us, Professor Joseph Ifeanyi Brian Adima. Thank you for your presence, sir. We also have in our midst a member of the Technical Management Committee, Dr. Philippa Moma. Well done, ma. I've skipped the next name I have. I will introduce her last. We also have in our midst Dr. Moriam Jagun, who has been very silent about everything, but she's the chair of the technical committee and the LOC. She's been working so hard. Thank you very much, ma. We'd also like to recognize another member of the former director with the Federal Ministry of Health, Dr. Adeniro. You're welcome, ma. Then also a former director with LASMA, Dr. Kweju Adenusi. Okay, you're welcome, ma. Okay, now the last person I deliberately skipped, Your Royal Highness, sir, is someone that if you have not met, I encourage you to meet her before the time is short. She walks the talk. You know, you hear people say, give people opportunity, Prof. They say, give opportunity, give opportunity. A lot of people say it to say, but very few people actually do what they say. She is, this is not the forum, but we'll have an opportunity to talk about it. But she's a mentor, she's a strong advocate and a believer in talents. She can give you all the opportunities in the world and continue to give to you. So please, it's my honor, and thank God for the microphone, to also specially recognize and make welcome officially to this program. She's been here with us all the while, the portfolio director of the Johns Hopkins Center for Communication Program Nigeria. She doesn't like it, but I have the microphone. Dr. Moji Odeku. Thank you very much, ma'am. We really, really honor and respect you, ma'am. She's our PD. Question time. You know, in my head, I said question time, offering time. No, don't worry, it's not offering time. It's just question time. Yes, ma'am. So we'll have the privilege of the microphone because you're in the hall, unless you want to write your question, so you're free. So I have 3 questions already. Okay, Professor Adima has just taken the slot for men. So men, I'm sorry. Okay, well, unless His Royal Highness gives the permission for us to take another man, because I see 2 men. Sir, do we have the, okay, sir, you see, your name has been written in the book. So yes, sir. So we have two of you. Yes, we have Dr. Dujiri. Any other question? Young people, we have a slot for young people. Any young? Okay, in fact, you must ask a question. Okay, good. So I'll start with, do you want to come here? I mean, no, sorry, help us with the microphone and the sanitizer. So they can ask their questions where they're seated. Cameramen, you may want to also reposition your cameras to capture the gentlemen and ladies asking the questions. So let's start with the gentle lady. Okay, you've given it to Prof. It's okay. Okay, sir. So yes, sir. Please kindly introduce yourself for the sake of the camera and your question, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Professor Brian Adema. I'm a professor of obstetrics and gynecology, and also subspecializing in sexual and reproductive rights, health and rights. I'm also the president of the Association of West African Societies of Obstetrics and Gynecology. Let me, first of all, congratulate the erudite professor on the blend, the mix that she's been able to eminently show between the literary world and sexual and reproductive rights. Wonderful looking at the social issues involved in gender-based violence, and then linking it with such authors as Dickens, like Chinua Achebe, like Emecheta. That means that the world is so close together that literature can blend with the social sciences and indeed sexual and reproductive rights. So I congratulate you, Ma. And I want to also congratulate this distinguished audience. It's been wonderful. Incidentally, I was a co-chair of the Ministerial Committee on the operationalization of the physical or medical aspects of the VAP Act as far back as 2014. And most of the things that are being said are very clear to me. Yes, the low-hanging fruit is getting the states to key into domesticating the VAP Act. That is to say, the physical or the punitive aspects of what happens with gender-based violence. But I think we also need to look at it from a very, very protracted point of view. We talk about today, but we need to talk about the future. You see, the problem with the sociology is that there is this social construct that had made a clear distinction between the male and the female gender, assigning superiority role to the male and an inferiority role to the female. And by so doing, I think that the sociologists will need to reconstruct so that these issues that have been tormenting us, issues of gender-based violence, will begin at an early stage to reconstruct it so that it won't happen again. If, for instance, at the family level, at the school level, we entrench issues related to the parity that should exist between the boy child and the girl child early enough, I think these things will begin to phase out. Why don't we introduce gender issues even at elementary school level, through secondary to the university? If we do that, we shall be able to begin to reconstruct an already social construct that is damaging the whole world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What do you expect when you give a professor the microphone? Professor will always be professor. Okay, so let's move on to Dr. Udujiri. She has, her hand was up. Please wipe it to her. So ma'am, please kindly introduce yourself for the camera and your question or comment, ma'am.
Distinguished members of the high table, the speaker for today, Madam, I doff my hat. I just congratulate you. You've been good. You've done justice to this. Can you hear me? Okay. You've done justice to the subject. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Now I see the, what do they call them now? I see that, yes, the agency that sponsored this as part of their annual lecture series is best suited for this. So even look at how can we get out of the woods. They have everything within their ambit. They have the data, they have the knowledge, they have everything to convince anybody who wants to think rationally. This issue has always been, as far back as the 70s and 80s, when I started work in SRH, I knew it's the same thing we've been programming. They're talking about, women empowerment, the woman is being suppressed, oppressed, and everything. And then what are we doing? They have the data. Population studies is what we need. They can now look at it and they're part of government. This is lip service that we've been paying all along the decades. But we can nip it in the bud. We started FLE, which is what the professor referred to. FLE, what became of FLE? What have we gained? They changed the name. They said they didn't want they changed it to Family Life Education. We had a more appropriate name earlier. So what have we gained? We are still trying to shy away. Let's call a spade a spade. We have a great issue. Lagos State, maybe because I live there, happened to be one of the foremost that is really tackling the issue of gender-based violence. Education is key. The police, they took them out, educated them on the issues. So the minute anybody arrives at the station, they are able to pick and they, put them along another line, whether to end up in prosecution or not. But an issue where you are now saying, one policeman said, what are you doing there? Where are you? That policewoman, the policewoman or policeman, should be castigated. What do you do to the baby in diapers? There are so many things where, derailment. The issue of women, it's a great issue. It's one of empowerment. It's one that is based on educational level. If a woman can really stand on her own 2 feet, she will be able to ward off. She will be able to, roll off. And a lot of the terrible things, pardon, I don't want to say the wrong language. a lot of the obnoxious things that are now meted out to women will be rebuffed appropriately. For you to rebuff something, you must be in a position to, to at least, fight for yourself. If I cannot, afford anything on my own, I'll just have to keep quiet and say, yes, sir, and go there. But if you are able to, in my own language, they say, well, you use the right finger to clean out your nostril. You won't go and use the wrong one. What it means is it's something appropriate that you will, apply. So please, Population Council, we need them to take their rightful position. They are being a federal institute. They can be the best suited to help nip this. It's not too late. It certainly is not too late. They have the data, they have everything for the different levels. If they are talking about women education, women empowerment, literacy and everything, they have it all. And they then will be able to see, yes, and address government and get government to be on the right footing. I think then and only then will we really see the light of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you very much. The youth rep, do you have a question or a comment, or you want us to just go ahead? Okay, you want to come forward, please. Just come forward, and so that for the sake of the camera, come forward. No, let her come to you. Please encourage young people, question or comment, and after that, we'll take about two questions written out. The Prof will read it out and also respond to all the issues.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Your Royal Highnesses and everybody here. Standing on existing protocol. My name is Oluwainito Sophie. I'm a reproductive health rights advocate. So for me, what I really want to talk about, when we're talking about this gender-based violence, I'm looking at people with disabilities. I know that that's another aspect that many of us tend to ignore, but I work with people with disability, and then what I feel pain about is when we have people who are say speech impaired, for instance, how do they get to communicate these things? How many of us even understand the sign languages to talk to them? For those who are visually impaired, what do we do, or how do we assist them in reporting issues around them? I feel that these are the things that we need to look at, and because if we leave anybody behind in this fight or in getting justice, then there's a very, very big problem. I know that there's so much we can do, but I'm also looking at data as a very important factor as we move along. And then I hope that we all will play our part in ensuring that we get justice for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Technical team, do we have any question online? I'll just swipe the microphone and hand over to the Prof to read out the question she has. Okay, can we have the microphone, that one? I've already soaked this, so you might want to use this to wipe it. So Prof will read out the questions she has. Technical team, any question online? None. Okay, ma.
We have here a question which says, we accept family consists of man, husband, woman, wife. My question, if family is the bedrock for curbing morals, why do husbands of families rape daughters? That is a question that I don't think anybody here can answer that question. But as I mentioned earlier in the discussion, when we talked of the different abuses, we said people are silent when children are raped in their homes, sometimes by relatives, including fathers. And most times, the system encourages silence. They say if you talk about it, it will embarrass the family. And we should talk about it. And the system should encourage people who are abused to talk about the abuses, not just talking, but doing something responsible. If a father rapes his child and the mother can't do anything, who else will do something? The mother, the closest people to the family, will have to go to the police and follow up, because there is the issue of follow-up here, which is very important in our society. You follow up and ensure that that father gets the maximum legal punishment. Some people say castrate him. Some people say beat him, kill him. That's not the law. Nigeria has a law, and that must be followed. And that means those responsible should be serious. At times, the police will say, go back, it's a family thing. Go and settle it at home. Who will settle it at home? There's a law. So we must insist on the legality and how these things must be handled. I understand many young girls I have met who have been abused in their families. They are miserable. They carry it all the days of their life. And it's a very exhaustive thing, very traumatic. It reduces their performance, their competencies, the content of their person. And things have to be done about it. Somebody says, in tackling SGBV, traditional religious leaders can play key roles to curb this second pandemic. And the dignitaries present, please, this question is for all of us here. Please share with us ways they can address GBV at community level. Your Royal Highness, I think this goes to you. Many women and girls are survivors of GBV, and they need space, they need safe spaces rather than being kept in the home of the abuser. What can be done at state level to create these safe houses for survivors? We mentioned this earlier, but she has specifically put the question, first question, for the dignitaries to share with us ways they are addressing it at community level, or it can be addressed at community level.
You see, there is no particular formula on how to solve this kind of misfortunes. And there is no society in this world where you find decency, respect for human lives, respect for human dignity, where you find everybody living peacefully and everybody watching the limits of his emotions in whatever form. Any society where you find maximum human respect and right to life, it is where you find the existence of law and order and enforcement of law and order. All of these superpowers you call superpowers today, for all the good that they accomplish, for all there is that makes them such exceptional nations that we run to. As a matter of fact, most of these superpowers you see in this world today, Nigeria is richer than them. Richer than them in human capital development and mental capacity. Richer than them in resource endowment that God has given us. Richer than them in every human endeavor. The only difference with us is self-discipline, law and order, and respect to the right of every human being. And the deliberate determination to make sure that the next person exists and survives in honor. The United Kingdom that colonized us doesn't have the wealth Nigeria has. They don't. As a matter of fact, among the best doctors and engineers you find in the United Kingdom and Nigeria. In every aspect of human endeavor across the world, from the United States to the European nations to the Russians, if you go there, you find Nigerians as reliable and respectable authorities in human capital development, expertise, and we are contributing deeply and positively to the development of these nations. Then back home, as a matter of fact, that best Nigeria in the UK or America, the moment he stays back to the soil of Nigeria, becomes exactly like us and worse than us. He is as disciplined and responsible as the citizen of America or England that he wants to be, even if he's in Russia. But the moment he comes back home, he joins us in the mission to destroy the nation. So beyond leadership inadequacy or failure, beyond lack of political will to make Nigeria a better place, there's no Nigerian that is not a victim of this self-maladministration and self-destruction. So back to the issue raised. If this is our disposition as a people within and outside the nation, how different will you be in the village? So if somebody is irresponsible enough, this beautiful girl God has given you and hold you accountable for, because all of us, in either books of religion, God told us we are shepherds of the families he has given us. God told us at whatever level of responsibility he has given us, we are shepherds, and he holds us to account for each of the benefits and responsibilities he has given us. And then God gave you a daughter, and you're sitting down there, maybe you are directly responsible for defiling this innocent child, or one of your neighbors, or one of your cousins, or her uncle, and you are saying you don't want to talk about it. Okay, don't talk about it yet. What will you tell God on the last day? Because no matter how much you pretend, whether you believe there is God or not, God is there, and for sure we'll meet him. And God will hold us to account from the child that is given to you as a guardian, to the child you give birth to the wife you marry, and to the husband you marry. God will hold each of us to account on the trusteeship of that responsibility. So, if somebody rapes some other person's daughter, somebody defiles his uncle's child, and some of us are saying we should settle out of the police station, or some of us are saying it's a family affair, let's keep quiet about it. How on earth will any nation exist without the enforcement of the rule of law? And that is why, as of fact, we know it's a reality. And two, like I said, I've come to learn if there's any new ways we have not known to deploy in the village. It's of fact that these are recurring incidences, and this set the policeman to tell you it's a family issue, go and sort it out. It's commonplace. But the families, as a matter of fact, of the guilty person and the person that has been cheated, to say, we have already discussed it, Your Highness, please just excuse us, we have warned ourselves, we have settled. It's very regular information. It is very frustrating, it is very depressing that this is the truth. On the side of the law, nobody wants to exercise the law. On the side of the families affected, they will tell you they have settled. So, as a matter of fact, I was very interested in this meeting because I thought perhaps by the time I'll be going back home, there will be some additional information on how to confront this issue. Because sometimes I insist that the policeman must prosecute the case to court. I insist that it must go to court. But you can be rest assured, if you insist and it goes through litigation, the lawyers will keep seeking adjournment and adjournment, and the families will be so frustrated that at the end of the day, will say, Your Highness, we don't even have the transport money to go to court again. You will give to support it. Since His Highness sometimes can be broke, sometimes you won't find the finance to support it continuously. At a certain point, they come. You just suppress the tears of your inadequacy and lack of capability to prosecute it to the end. But again, this is a reality that we are faced with. For how long? And that is why it is important, and I hope at the end of the day, this sitting will come up with a very motivating resolution for the National Assembly to come up with very clear position in the Constitution that will be amended. There cannot be forgiveness. There cannot be settling out of court. There cannot be saying, because he's the father or the brother, we don't want anybody to know. Let the course of the law be established so that it will serve as a deterrent for anybody in doing it again in the future. Sincerely, unless the rule of law takes precedence over the affairs of our nation, Nigeria will have a hard way making progress and development.
So, between boys and girls, the boy and girl child. Have been doing just this. Traditionally, if you open one of the books that the children's books that came from the UK or other places, the doctor is always a boy. The nurse is a girl. And our writers said, no. If you do this, the children keep reading this from childhood and they think this is the right thing to do. And so you have to start presenting characters, male and female, who are competent or capable of going through school. Eze goes to school and becomes this. Mabel Shagun's, my father's daughter, would also go to school and become this. Christy Ajayi would present several girl children in her children's stories who become doctors and other fields. This is to encourage this, to deconstruct this view that certain things are meant for boys and certain for girls. So in our different ways and professions, this deconstruction has been going on. But at the end, it has to be encouraged at a certain level. Scholarships are given to girls to read whatever courses. We have many girls, many women, professors now in the classroom in education, more in education than any other course, because in the late 70s, certain governors especially in the Midwest, gave scholarships to women to the university. If you got admission in education, automatically it came with a scholarship. And so many girls had opportunities now to go to school. But it's good that in education, you have education this, and education science, education arts. So many of them studied different courses. So that deconstruction has been going on. And we need to encourage it, especially in medicine as well. Because my daughter read medicine and she had problems. She had a lecturer who kept any little thing you do, she said, you are a girl. That is why you are having this problem. And if I didn't stand my ground, she may have changed her course. So I had a voice. and I could use it at the right time. And that is why I keep repeating that women should not be silent when they should speak. And fathers should encourage their children and stand up for them when these people come around. And gradually, the system will absorb. And so when we talk of systemic failure, I especially emphasize this because a lot of the problems begin at that level. Don't go and try to be an engineer. You know you are a girl. Don't be an architect. You can't be climbing and people will be seeing your legs. These are the wrong systems that we encourage and must stop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Mnguember Vicky Slyvester. Another round of applause for her. Remember that the theme of her discussion was gender-based violence and family planning in times of emergency. While this discussion was going on, we had in our midst, he came in very quietly, a strong supporter of family planning and sexual and reproductive health in Nigeria. He's a known voice, a strong advocate, the Emir of Shonga. His Royal Highness, Dr. Haliru Yahaya. You're welcome, sir. Dr. GK, I'll just give the microphone to you for 1 minute to just give us some perspective on medical forensics. We've been doing a lot of trainings with medical doctors so that we also give broader perspective to this. 1 minute, sir. Yeah. Then we go to the next session.
Your Eminences and colleagues, I just want to share my experience. I consult for the British Council on their sexual assault program, ROLAC. We've trained doctors and nurses in 22 states as we speak. And one of the key things that we ask, we'll get into the heads of the doctors and nurses to know the cultural perceptions of rape in their lives. We were shocked that in some tribes, both in the north and in the south, they say when somebody wants to be a king, like two of you, for him to get that, he has to rape a girl. It's accepted in the community. In fact, there is a tribe that two states in the north, and in the south. So it is a tradition. So the men that are doing it are not seeing it as a wrong thing. It's their tradition. The women accept it is their tradition. So what it means, we get into the heads of those communities, remove that first. And that's what we normally do before we even train the doctors on forensic medical examination. We need to know how they perceive rape. Most people in Nigeria do not perceive rape as a criminal activity. So I'm so excited, sir, that the way you spoke today, we're going to come after you. You're going to be our voice in that program. Because once we get the community leaders to start to desensitize their people on some of these issues, we'll continue to have problems. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oji. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, His Royal Highness, the Andoma of Doma, Alhaji Dr. Ahmadu Aliyu Oga Onawa said, and I quote, "For how long shall we endure gender-based violence? How long is long enough, I ask?" Like he also said, let the rule of law take precedence in everything we do. As we leave this session, let that question keep ringing in our hearts and in our minds. For how long shall we endure gender-based violence? How long is long enough? With that, we come to the end of this lecture session, and I will now hand over the microphone. It's in order to clap for me. I can pause and collect the clap. It's okay. It's okay. It's not illegal. So we're going to hand over the microphone now to His Royal Highness to give us his closing remarks. Please, yes, the mic is COVID-19 certified. So His Royal Highness will now give us his closing remarks on this. We can't have enough of him, can we? Absolutely not. Your Royal Highness, sir.
Let me my life to know that to me, male or female. So whenever I see any age, any age that looks like that of my father or my mother, I've always called them Baba or Mama, in spite of the crown on my head. Because except for the blessings that God has given parents to give back to me, I wouldn't have been here. As His Highness, to the glory of God. So I want to concede to the respective honored age of both the male and female here who are older than me, who are parents to me, and those who are my age mates, and those who older than, to stand and thank God for the privilege of being in your midst this morning up to this afternoon. And to say to me, it's a privilege and a worthy experience to have had the very deep intellectual thoughts. The professor who graduated 7 years before I graduated from the university led us in knowing and thinking. It's indeed a privilege to meet the former Minister of Health and my dear mothers on the front row and the one by my side. I was listening and borrowing from your wealth of experiences and knowledge. And Professor is always a professor. He spoke and didn't leave us in doubt what the discipline is all about. The knowledge is for the entire life process. Madam, we are appreciative. The paper presented quite an insightful one, quite revealing, quite some of us were lucky we have it to go and read further and make sure we read in between the lines. You can rest assured, especially the circumstance that this year's lecture is all about. Very timely and expedient theme. A responsibility of humanity. A call to wake up and know that the world is endangered. It has been endangered before now, but it is more now, especially with the misfortune of COVID-19 that caged us since the 20th of March this year. The desperation and haste for people to remain without the capacity to manage their emotions. Some of them invading even their own siblings and sisters. Some victims of their neighbors. Some, especially those in the IDP camps, victims of the absence of security services, especially where insurgencies have taken charge of locations. People have severally been victims of this misfortune. People and government made humble efforts. At the pandemic, it became impossible to do much. People became more vulnerable and endangered. This reality has forced this kind of thought that has gathered us here today. The rescue for this country, whether on gender-based violence or national survival, is dependent on the nation instituting the exercise of the rule of law under any circumstance. No nation in the world thrives and advances to the level of being called a developed nation without the exercise, maximum exercise of the rule of law, without fear or favor. As long as mine should not be punished for an injustice for a wrong he has done, this country can never move forward. As long as mine is preferred, no matter how inadequate, this country can never move forward. Not to talk of destroying somebody's right to peaceful psychic and proper human development. Because any child raped, male or female, psychologically is deranged, is placed under a lot of torture, that in every situation that child is psychologically scared of exercising his or her best to the maximum, to the benefit of herself and humanity. So the rule of law must never be compromised in the rescue and the mission to make sure that gender-based violence does not exist ever again, whether in Nigeria or in any part of the world. So I sincerely thank everyone of us for being here, and thank especially my elder brother who just sneaked in, Demi Oshanga. He was the person that drafted me into this responsibility. And I almost dodged, but he insisted he is not going to be here. If I knew he was going to sneak in, I would have refused to be here. So he told me I should please do the service of participating in this lecture series. And I'm pleased that he hung around somewhere giving me spiritual support without my knowing. But it's indeed my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, for being part of this very important outing. And may God return each and every one of us safely home. Thank you sincerely.
Your Highness, you know, it's always very exciting when you hear men and women speak, but behind them is someone else who is pushing and propelling them. Talking about mentorship, it's quite very, very encouraging. Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness, Dr. Yahya. Thank you very much. We'll just quickly move on to the thanks that will be taken by Dr. Gaji Ismaila Bello, DG of National Population Commission, but representing him to take that will be the Director Advocacy of the Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria, Dr. Okai Haruna Aku. He will take the vote of thanks. And after that, we'll take group photographs, please, before we finish this session. So please, let's make welcome to the microphone, Dr. Okai Haruna Aku, Director Advocacy, PPFP, for the vote of thanks. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for, I'd like to say, first of all, we thank God Almighty for keeping us here. You'll agree with me that it has been an insightful type of program in this year's 8th annual population lecture series. I would like to actually thank His Royal Highness Alhaji Ali Doma, the Andoma of Doma, Alhaji Onao Andoma of Doma, for squeezing time out of his tight schedule to attend this particular occasion. And I think we all type of content is made of. I also like to thank all the Royal Highnesses here present for taking time to attend this particular event on gender-based violence. Especially, I would also like to thank Professor Mnguember, sorry if I didn't get the name, Vicky, Slyvester. She really talked to us on gender-based violence, even ordinarily and in emergency situation. You agree that gender-based violence is increasing in emergency like COVID-19, and everybody has learned one thing or the other here. Madam, I would like to say thank you. Talking about sexual reproductive health rights, today we have seen that I'm going to add another right. You have the right to be sick, but thank God you must get, because the community needs you. So we thank God that, yes, you've rightly told us you're coming from the hospital because you want to get well, because we need you. I wish you quick recovery. I want to thank the Board of Trustees for the Association for Advancement of Farming, the Board of Directors, Board of Trustees Chairman, Alhaji Java, for the patients all along, take you out of your space to come and stay here for the past 3-4 days. It's not an easy thing. Then the TMC for AAFP as well. I would like to say thank you very much. The planning committee for APLS, the names are inexhaustive, particularly Dr. Ejike, Dr. Mukhtar Ibrahim Gaya present because they were also contributory. My friend from Breakthrough. Charity Ibiawuchi, though not present here, she has been a very good contributor in any time we are doing APLS annually. I would also like to thank the stakeholders. I cannot mention all the names here. Welcome. And the media here present, NANS, NTA, TV, and AIT for all the support you have given us from the beginning to this time. And all the people have actually expressed their passion in gender-based violence, and I can see present here. I will say welcome, and at the same time wish you a safe trip as you go back to your destination. Thank you very much.